Introducing Rogers TV. This program is brought to you by Rogers Xfinity, connecting you to more of what you love. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
RTV Sports Rap, a week off due to the OHL Playoffs. The Owen Sound Attack are out in 4 games to the London Knights. The third straight year they've been eliminated in the first round, but via a sweep. 2 by London, last year by Saginaw. Spencer Byers alongside me, JC Coots, and Lucas Ireland. And guys, I think we have to start with the Attack season now being officially over and looking towards the OHL draft. They have the 5th overall pick. All this young talent. They only have 3 OAs, I think 3 or 2 OAs going into next year. So, JC, I guess kind of looking at the Owen Sound Attack season now as it is over, what's kind of been your final review for the Owen Sound Attack?
Well, I think the review is a pretty favorable one when you look at the future of this team. We saw standout performances from the rookies, led by Pierce Bowie, who won the OHL rookie scoring race. I'm pretty sure he deserves to win the Rookie of the Year. Not many get to do that as a true 16-year-old, and Pierce Bowie proved that he is going to be an elite player moving forward. And then you've got Cole Zaraski, who also had a great season, a little up and down for Cole, but still nonetheless, you've got that 6 and 7 first-round draft picks from last year's OHL draft together. We saw Ethan Kindry make some strides when he was in and out of the lineup, which was great to see. The young defense looking good. Gabe Smith essentially in his first full season, his rookie season, after not getting much playing time last year for the Attack. Looks like he's going to be a great stay-at-home defenseman. And Elliot Arnett, another defenseman who is a 16-year-old, was relied upon very heavily during the season. Those are just a few names that stand out on this Owen Sound Attack team that are really going to develop as the core, the future core of this team grows together and goes forward. And then you have to think, too, moving forward, there's going to be some big additions as well. Of course, the OHL draft is coming up this weekend, so you got to think that there's going to be a few things on Dale DeGray's checklist in order to go out and get. Likely, maybe, possibly, we will see some new imports next year. I don't know that Max Bleisha and Rafik Vorosian are going to continue on with the team, but then again, we're not really sure. But based on how the young talent performed, based on the fact that the coaching staff brought in a whole new philosophy and a whole new attitude to this team, you just have to think that even though this wasn't the season that the Owen Sound Attack would have wanted to have, they were successful in the goal of making the playoffs. They did fight hard against the London Knights. They put up a great fight. They weren't pushovers by any stretch of the imagination. And that's valuable. That's 4 valuable games for those rookies to learn that life in the postseason is a lot different than the regular season. So I think you have to, as we said at the media room roundtable the other night during the last game, we're all walking away thinking, this is a pretty good season we just had, whereas last season we all walked away thinking, oh, glad that's over. So it was a completely different mentality from our media standpoint and a completely different mentality from the fan standpoint. They had a lot of issues last year selling out that Bayshore down the stretch and couldn't sell it out for the playoffs. This year, a team that nobody gave a chance to, those crowds were loud, and they were happy to be there and happy to support a team, which goes to show that Owen Sound doesn't necessarily just support winning teams. They'll support anybody that works hard and has that blue-collar mentality. And this Owen Sound Attack team really lived up to that.
JC, there's so many things I want to pivot off of there. I think the first thing I'm going to do is when you mentioned all those young guys, Zaraski, who they traded for at the trade deadline, and the Sam McHugh trade to Flint. Obviously, you mentioned Pierce Bowie, Elliot Arnett as the big pieces. Another big piece, I think, are 2 guys in that Oshawa trade for Colby Barlow is Tristan DeLille and David Bedkowski, two guys that will now get a full offseason with this new coaching staff, with the Owen Sound attack in Owen Sound. And I think same thing with Zaraski, his first summer with the Owen Sound attack. I think those things are going to pay such big dividends for this team, with all these guys getting a chance to play with each other, not just during the regular season, and having to kind of figure it out as the season goes on, and kind of having to plug and play guys with all the injuries the attack had also this season, which was a factor with how the team played at certain times this year. But down the stretch, they were a really good team. They were a very hard fighting team. Pierce Bowie was one of the hottest players in probably the OHL in the last 2 months of the regular season. That's not just rookies. He was spectacular just as a player, as a true 16-year-old, as you mentioned. And other things to mention for this attack team that I think you kind of touched on there was just how young this team is and all the things we saw. And it's, when you look at last year's team, as you mentioned, with kind of the sigh of relief of finally this year is over, is because this team for the second year in a row last year was in the CHL top 10 in the preseason and never touched those heights again, was never that team that we ever saw on the ice. On paper, never translated to on-ice performance. This team was ranked 20th out of 20 in the preseason OHL rankings. This team was not supposed to be anywhere near the playoffs. And by the end of the year, us as media, we're all talking like, you know what? In fairness, they deserve to make it. They deserve a chance to play against London or Windsor in the first round. It ended up being London. And again, I don't think any of us thought they would beat London or even really give London, much trouble because of how talented the London Knights are. Again, 12 draft picks, 11 draft picks on the London Knights. They're an armada, and they're going to be an armada, and they're going to be hard to beat by anybody in the OHL, East or Western Conference. So this young team did a lot of really, really good things this year, and there's so many positives to take off of it. And Lucas, as a almost third party down there in KW, I mean, what did you see of the attack as this season kind of comes to a close?
Well, I mean, you guys said it. Owen Sound was a team that a lot of people looked at the start of the year and thought they weren't going to make the playoffs. And they definitely played like a team early on that, could they not? We don't know. It's going to come down to to the end of the season. That's exactly what they did. And it seemed they're close to the end that they were going to miss it. But then they started to really pick up the pace. Their young guys started to play really well. As you mentioned, Pierce Bowie had himself a fantastic season. Landon Hookie is getting 70 points in there as well for the attack. Like, they played really, really well, started to win or string some wins together, and found themselves in a battle with three teams for the final two playoff spots. And they would, of course, win the eighth one. Of course, they would have preferred, I think, to play the Spitfires. Would it have changed much? Probably not, but they made the playoffs. They did what a lot of people said that they probably wouldn't do. It'd be unlikely for them to do. And another thing that you guys mentioned that I absolutely agree with, future is bright with this team. The young guys played well, especially down the stretch. Trades that the attack made during the season, if they have some of these players return, I can see this team probably being within fourth or fifth or sixth maybe next year. We'll see. There's a lot for these guys to learn, a lot for them to put together, but they're a good team. And I do believe, as I mentioned at the start of this season, I thought that they would reach the 30-win threshold. I feel as though they'll probably hit 30 wins or more next year. That's my prediction for next season during the playoffs now, and I'm going to stick with it.
Well, I think, Lucas, will keep our opinions of the attack team next year because, again, as JC kind of mentioned, are there new imports coming in? Is the import draft going to play a factor? Obviously, the first-round pick in the upcoming OHL draft, the fifth overall pick in the upcoming OHL draft, will they play a massive factor? You'd have to assume so with how young this team is, only having, I believe, 2 OAs going into next year. Carter George's status, because I'll be honest, guys, the better he plays, the more I keep thinking, is LA going to sign him and put it, or I guess not sign him, but put him in the AHL and assign him to the AHL? Like that, that kind of makes me worried a little bit for the attack, not necessarily for Carter, because he is so good and does play so well and is the X factor for the attack in any given game, in any given series. So those little things kind of, teeter me on. I'm going to wait till next spring and next kind of fall to see what the team kind of looks like and how the team is shaping up. But as you guys have kind of alliterated to, it is very bright right now in Owen Sound, and it's very optimistic. All of us are all the media, all the fans, it feels like, are very optimistic for what this team could look like and is looking like it's going to be in the coming years. Now, I do want to go to the rest of the OHL playoffs, guys, and I will start with you, Lucas, as your Kitchener Rangers are still in the OHL playoffs. The London Knights will play the Erie Otters, who upset the Saginaw Spirit in 5 games in the first round, the only upset of the first round of a lower seed beating a higher seed. Then it'll be Kitchener versus Windsor, 2 versus 3 seed. Then in the Eastern Conference, it'll be Brantford versus, and pardon me looking away, Oshawa, who did beat Brampton in a very heavyweight series, as well as Barrie versus Kingston. So starting with you, Lucas, which series do you think is the most intriguing to you going into the second round?
Well, it's not even because I'm a Rangers fan, but I'm going to go with the Kitchener-Windsor series. And you got to think about this too. This is going to be the third playoff meeting between these two teams in the last 4 years. And in that time frame, both teams have won the series. Kitchener won the historic upset, the 8th seed beating the first seed in a sweep 4-0. That was back in 2022. Windsor would then get their revenge the very next year in 2023, winning 4-1 in that series. So I think that with the way that these two teams are put together, of course, Windsor has some of the best players as far as points go to start the playoffs. Liam Greentree, Ilya Protas, both have 15 points each. Rangers are going to have to do everything they can to try and shut them down. And the big thing that I think gives them a chance as far as players go is the hottest goaltender in the OHL, Jackson Parsons. He's had an incredible year. He's been one of the best goalies all year long. He had a great first round, only losing the one game in a 2-0 shutout, I believe it was, but Flint would skate away with the win back in game 3. But with the way that Parsons plays, I'm a huge fan of his, and I know that he is capable of taking the Rangers past the Spitfires once more, but it's going to be a tough series. My guess is it's going to go 6 or 7 games with the Rangers coming out on top in my opinion, the most intriguing series of round 2.
What about you, JC? Which series in the second round has kind of caught your eye going into the first couple of second round games coming up this weekend?
Well, I think that Kitchener-Windsor series is definitely going to be a close one. I do like the Jackson Parsons X factor there because normally if you're going to look at playoffs, you got to look at goaltending first, and I think that Kitchener might have the edge in that series. London Erie, I don't think that there's going to be any surprises in that series. Erie might be able to take a game off London after that very surprising first round against Saginaw. Saginaw definitely did not have the goaltending in that series, which was evident with the Erie Otters just going hog wild when it came to scoring goals. What could be a closer series than is on paper could be that Kingston-Barrie series. I mean, Barrie is a team that does have a lot of talent that never quite lived up to who they are and who they are on paper this year. The North Bay connection there, the North Bay line, really hasn't gotten to full speed just yet, even though they've had a while to try to get there. Kingston, though, is fully loaded. They've got some great goaltending. They're a veteran team. They're well coached. It should be a Frontenac series, but it could be a lot closer, I think, than some people are letting on. As for Oshawa Brantford, I mean, you got to love Lardis and all the goal scoring that he did. But Oshawa, again, is a team that is built and designed to go back to the OHL final for the second year in a row. They are once again hoping that it will be a London-Oshawa series in the final so that they can get revenge for last year. But the one guy that really woke up during that first round was Colby Barlow, and they've got some pretty good goal scoring on the Oshawa Generals and some pretty good goaltending as well. So I think Oshawa's probably got the edge in that series, but the one that could be intriguing outside of Kitchener-Windsor could be that Kingston-Barrie series.
Well, JC, in all honesty to you, I agree with you wholeheartedly on the North Bay line of Romani, Wakely, and Van Steensel has not panned out maybe to what Barrie had expected in the regular season. But in the postseason, Van Steensel's got 7 points. Romani's got 9 points, including 8 goals, and tied for second with about 6 other players is the other man, Dallin Wakely. So that line is kind of clicking right at the right time, right when you'd want them to in the postseason. So it'll be interesting to see how that offensive dynamo line, as you mentioned, with the North Bay line in Barrie, can do against the Kingston Frontenacs, which is a team that a lot of the panel has liked throughout this season. I believe most of you predicted to go pretty far, if not go all the way to the final of the OHL and play most likely the London Knights, because I don't think anyone picked against them, including myself, as much as I painstakingly wanted to pick against them. I consciously can't pick against a 112-point team who lost 11 regulation games. Like, it's going against all logic to pick against the London Knights, in all honesty, with, again, all the draft picks and the regular season and being reigning OHL champions and et cetera, et cetera. So we'll now move off into the NHL, but before we get to that, guys, I would like to mention in the NCAA, we did kind of talk about it throughout the March Madness. It is now all over. The Yukon Huskies did beat the South Carolina Gamecocks in the women's pool, and it was a rout, 82-59 for Gino Auriemma's 12th national championship. First one in 9 years, might I add, with Paige Beckers, who will go first overall in the WNBA draft over Dawn Staley's club. And in the men's, the Florida Gators got their third national championship, first under Todd Golden, as they beat the Kelvin Sampson-led Houston Cougars, who now have lost their second national championship in the last couple of seasons. And it was a heartbreaker for Houston, not being able to score on the last 2 possessions of the game to take the lead or win it in the last moments, but were not able to. 65-63 final win for the Gators. Now, going to the NHL, guys, I think the big news, which everyone's been paying attention to, has been paying attention to all season, until just a few nights ago, Alexander Ovechkin, the Great 8, beat the Great 1's record of most goals in an NHL career at 895 and counting, might I add, for Alexander Ovechkin. I'll start with you, JC. Now, obviously, there were questions of if Ovi would break it this year, if Ovi'd ever break it due to injury, due to performance. This year, he's turned back the clock, if you will, an 18% shooting percentage, over 40 goals again. It almost felt like destiny. Ovi was going to get it. Maybe not this year, but it is magical to see him do it in the last couple of games going into the playoffs, isn't it?
Yeah, it really was. And this race really captivated a lot of people as it started to become real. I mean, even if you go back to just a few months ago when Ovechkin broke his leg, it did not look like this was going to happen this year. And then somehow he came back, and I don't know where he keeps the fountain of youth at his house, but he's clearly been going to have a few drinks from there every now and then, in addition to, I'm sure, some Coors Light. It looked like he cracked open a can of that in the dressing room after he tied Gretzky's record. But it was a pretty amazing thing to see. I watched the game on Friday night. Even my wife got into it and said, we should probably turn this game on. And it looked like Ovechkin was probably going to do it Friday night, especially when the goaltender was pulled. They're at home. Circumstances are perfect. A hat trick to break the record with Gretzky in the building. But curious enough, and maybe this speaks to Ovechkin a little bit, he didn't want to break the record on an empty netter. So he purposely stayed on the bench. Instead, a kid scores his first NHL goal, which was a pretty cool moment nonetheless. The kid got to meet Wayne Gretzky after the game, and Ovechkin had to wait till Sunday afternoon for his date with history. It is an amazing record to beat. It's probably one of the hardest records in sports to beat, I would say, for a long time. I mean, it's right up there with Roger Maris's record and 61 home runs in a season. For a long time, nobody thought anybody could do it. Now, I guess the great thing about Ovechkin is he's not on performance-enhancing drugs like Mark McGuire was when he beat the record. But again, that was a huge moment for the sport. I remember when that record was broken, watching on TV. If you were watching regular network television, you could be watching a sitcom. Whenever McGuire came to bat, they would cut away and put on the baseball game in case history was made. They didn't quite do that this time. But, man, did the NHL ever celebrate it the proper way for a league that is often criticized for not celebrating and elevating its stars. They had that whole thing planned out. Like, it was almost a half-hour long presentation on the ice midway through the second period of a game, like a real game that had implications involved in it. They stopped down, did the speech as Gretzky was on the ice. It was very well done from an NHL standpoint, and very cool that the New York Islanders were all right with allowing it to happen in their home building. But yeah, that was one of those records in sports that, honestly, I remember being a kid. I was 11 years old when Gretzky broke Howe's record, and I thought, this one will never happen again. People might get close, but they won't top Gretzky. And sure enough, we see it happen. There's already, some projections on who might be able to beat Ovi's record. I don't know if Ovi's going to stop anytime soon. Like, he could finish this season with over 900, and for a guy that has just once again eclipsed the 40 goal mark at the age of 39, I don't see him calling it and throwing in the towel anytime soon. Gretzky had definitely slowed down in his last few years. Ovi has not. Really, the only thing that could prevent Ovi from even hitting 1,000 goals would be if he wants to go play in Russia someday, which is a real possibility. He may want to spend, the last couple of years of his career in the KHL. But I don't know why he would, especially this year. If Washington could go on and win the Stanley Cup, that's going to give Ovechkin, probably some motivation to keep playing for a few more years.
JC, I was going to mention when you talked about the Fountain of Youth, I was saying the Raj Al Ghul elixir pit is the Lazarus pit. Pardon me. I seem like the whole team's drinking from it because they're the second best team in hockey. They've all of a sudden found this form that no one expected. Because again, no one expected the Capitals to be this good. They didn't make the playoffs last year. No one thought that if they made improvements, it would be to the second best team in hockey right now, which is what they are, a 107-point team. It's just been a complete script flip, even for Ovi, who had a subpar year, you would say, last year to compare, especially to this year. And one thing, JC, that maybe you didn't mention just because of his contract, is he signed through to next year. His contract finishes in 25 after 25, 26 when he's 40. So he still has one more full year at least on his current contract to play out. So that's excluding if he wants to continue playing after 40. If he stops at 40, you say 900, maybe 920, 930, let's not project, but, it's serious possibility he'll extend this record. And, Lucas, what was it like for you as an NHL fan? I know that hockey's your sport, to watch Ovi break a record that, as JC mentioned, people thought was unbreakable.
Well, that's just it. I mean, all my life, I was always hearing Gretzky, his record will never be touched. And for a long time, I believed it. Until I think that one of the moments where I thought that it's possible was after he scored 500. When he scored 500 back in 2016, I kind of thought, there's a chance. He's obviously a ridiculously good goal scorer. We've known this his entire career. He literally has scored the goal. And I think when I say the goal, most people know which goal I'm talking about, with Wayne Gretzky on the bench as the Coyotes head coach at the time. But it's incredible to me the season he had this year. You look back 2 years ago, he had 42 goals. He did that in 73 games. Last year was an off year, and a lot of people kind of thought that maybe this was going to be the new normal for Ovechkin when he scored just 31 goals in 62 games, I believe it was. Again, that's an off year for Ovi. We've seen him score countless 50-goal seasons. For him to go from 42 to 31 in 1 year definitely seemed off. And then you go to this year. Starts off pretty strong, and then he breaks his leg. That we thought he's gone for a long time. How long was he out for? Like, not even 2 months? Comes back. Continues to go on an absolute tear, especially in these last few games. And he's got 42 goals in 61 games, the same amount of goals he had 2 years ago in 12 less games. There's still 5 games left to go in the season. He's currently on a 5-game goal streak. If he can continue that with 1 goal for the remaining games of the season, he'll be at 900 by the end of the year. That's just incredible. Like, Ovi has had an unbelievable year for his age, and I cannot wait to see how the remaining 5 games for him and the Capitals go this year.
Now, we're not going to talk about, as JC kind of alluded to, the new things is instantly Ovi breaks the record. So what are we going to talk about? Who's going to break Ovi's record? Is it Austin Matthews? Is it somebody currently playing? Like, is it McDavid going to somehow do it? Leon Draisaitl could do it. We're not going to talk about that because I think it's way too premature. Ovi just broke the record. Let's not try to take Ovi's shine as he attempts to get the crown. So we're going to move over to something we haven't talked about a lot this year, honestly, because the Blue Jays suck, is baseball. And Vladdy Jr., and the news came out of left field, and I'm talking left field, 14 years, $500 million. Now, that sounds like a lot of money, because it is a lot of money. But when you average out the $500 million over those 14 years, guys, it's like $35 million, which when you hear what Ohtani got, when you hear what Juan Soto got, it's honestly a really good deal for the Blue Jays. And I read the report. There's no opt-outs. There's no deferrals. I think there's a no-trade clause, but when he's Vladimir Guerrero Jr., you give him the no-trade clause. If he wants to go somewhere, it's his choice. So this is a 14-year pact with a great player and a Blue Jay, maybe lifer at this point. I'll start with you, Lucas. I know we've talked about a little bit about our opinions on the Blue Jays. Kind of what's been your feeling the first couple of games in the regular season, and then what was your feeling when you heard Vladimir Guerrero Jr. will be a Jay for you'd expect for the rest of his career?
Well, I definitely was surprised with the first few games, honestly. I know I was very adamant that they were not going to make the playoffs, and I still stand by that. I'm not going to change my mind after a few games. But I was a little surprised, going 5-2 to start, and they went on a little bit of a losing skid. And then Monday morning, I woke up at 5 a.m., checked my phone, and saw the news that Vladdy had signed that 14-year deal. And I couldn't help but smile because I've been a big fan of Vladdy his whole career. I absolutely love him. And I know that he will continue to grow as a player. He will continue to improve as a player. And having him on a contract until 2039, I mean, the future, anything can happen with the Blue Jays. Anything can happen with him. And I think that with him on the team and the team building around him, good things are to come.
Well, JC, I think everyone on this show remembers your infamous rant about the Toronto Blue Jays when their offseason was, well, lackluster, if you will, which has been lackluster for the last couple of years. But I think we all have to be honest. This extension for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. passed his deadline when he said, I'm not signing anything after training camp. Once we get to spring training, conversations are over. I'm playing baseball. That's changed. And now he's a Blue Jay for the majority, if not the rest of his career. All eyes now go look at Bo Bichette. But what was your first reaction hearing Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is a Blue Jay for the next 14 seasons?
Well, the week before when Rogers signed their new NHL deal for $11 billion, I said, well, you don't got any money for Vladdy? Like, we've clearly opened up the wallet a little bit here. So obviously there's some money to spend. It was surprising that it happened. Honestly, I thought the Blue Jays missed the boat, and I was just waiting for the Yankees to offer him the same amount of money, probably with less term. I mean, he probably could have got 9 or 10 years and $500 million from the Yankees had he waited. I think that there are obviously a lot of worries with a deal that is so long term. This is going to take him till he's 39 with the Blue Jays, so it's a long time. I mean, you're building this guy as the face of the franchise, but as you mentioned, Spencer, in the long haul, this is a good deal. I mean, all baseball contracts are doing is getting bigger and bigger every single year as we go on. The term is getting longer, a decade plus, and teams are having to defer payments. It's a trend that is probably going to hurt baseball in the long run, whereas the Jays arguably have got themselves a pretty good long-term deal. If anything happens to Vladdy between now and the next 14 years, that's going to be a tough contract to move. They're going to be stuck with that guy. And if he falls off the map and all of a sudden goes back to his bad ways, I mean, we have to remember at the start of his career, Vladdy was a heavy-set dude and needed to really focus on baseball and get better. If he goes back to the old ways, not going to be a good deal. But right now, it's a pretty good deal for the Blue Jays, and I think the entire fan base is relieved to see that he's here.
And we'll see how that deal pans out over, as you mentioned, the 14 years and his heavy set ways and how the Blue Jays season goes. But for JC Coots, Lucas Ireland, myself, Spencer Byers, and the great Mark Perry, we'll see you next week on RTV Sports Rap.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
With Rogers TV, you can cheer on the home team from the comfort of your living room. We'll head to the rink, the field, the court, or the pitch, so you don't have to. Tune in and cheer on your local amateur athletes on Rogers TV.
It's time to get a little messy.
Thursdays, Top Chef heads north.
Welcome to Toronto. Woo!
And when the competition hits Canada,
Poutine.
They're here to fight for over $500,000.
A lot of dough on the line, right?
there are no apologies allowed.
Am I missing one? Oh my God. Woo!